People who quit a high-paying job for happiness? How's life now? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. I made 6 figures selling cars at a large dealership group in the Midwest. I worked 8 a.m., 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday and never saw my family. I dreaded weekends because I always had 5 or 6 appointments on Friday, Saturday. My kids were growing up without me, and my girlfriend fiancé was growing apart from me. I left that job to get back into the manufacturing field, and I now buy-sell stainless steel, aluminum, copper, bronze, alloys, etc. from 8 oak to 430 MF. I make about $40K less per year. My sons are fudge awesome. One just started 3rd grade and the other his freshman year. I just married the woman mentioned above, and I could not possibly be happier. Story 2. I sleep better. I poop better. My blood sugars are better. My hypertension is better. My social life is worse. I make less, but I also spend less because I'm not constantly trying to compensate for bad days. I'm more focused. I'm also more challenged, and some days are harder. I like to show up early. I still dislike staying late. I used to work in finance. Now I'm a nurse. Answer. Also worked in finance. Investment banking, so 100-hour weeks, shoot mentally abusive managers, cutthroat environment, etc. Really took a toll on my body and mental health, so after a couple of years, I quit. Now I'm a software engineer, and my life is a million times better. Of course, I had to work hard to learn how to code and land a job as an outsider, which was stressful in of itself, but it was worth it. I do sometimes wonder how much I'd be making now if I had just sucked it up and grinded through the finance life, but I think I wouldn't be in a mentally great spot if I stayed. Plus, I think I would have eventually become everything that I dislike about my managers just by exposure. Story 3. Worked as an attorney, quit to be a teacher. It was okay for a while, but years later it's bad. I'm poor and terrified that I will be poor forever. Answer. I'm leaving teaching to become an attorney beast. I'm tired of being broke. Everyone says he'll regret it. I'm sorry to hear her having a rough time, but you have made me feel better, so thank you all. As others have said, I am sure there are SPED opportunities that would pay more, or you could even look for one of those instructional coach jobs. Everyone will despise the sight of you, but at least you'll get paid more and do basically nothing. Godspeed. Story 4. Went from corporate IT to residential concierge, handyman for rich people. Couldn't be happier. 61 years old and semi-retired. Clients instead of managers, lots of referrals. Make my own schedule and cruise from job to job, listening to 80s music on Spotify. Story 5. I am on that edge now. Financially, I am very well off right now, but I dislike my job. This December, the house is paid off. My partner and I will start thinking about our remaining future, beginning next year. The 2-3K a month less is a big hitter, though. Answer. My personal suggestion, I suppose if you reduce it to the simplest form, is just to do your job much more poorly. I mean that a little tongue-in-cheek, of course. I found my issue was more so that I felt compelled to work around the clock, to always produce beyond my coworkers, and to otherwise make myself seem the best. And when I broke that down, I found that was mostly all just my pride. There's probably a huge gap between what you currently produce versus what the lowest producer produces, and yet they're still employed. So maybe just shoot for a little bit above that person so that you keep the pay, but gain the satisfaction of life, or at least it balances a bit better. It took some time, but I'm content with that balance. Story 6. This thread, TLDR. People who left with a financial cushion of some kind. I don't make as much, but I'm happier. People who did not, I regret it every day. Story 7. I'm the opposite. Quit a high-paying job I loved for a more high-paying job, and am absolutely hating the new job. Answer. I did something similar in 2023, although I went from mediocre pay to a little more pay, and the new job was terrible. Toxic clinic, micromanaged by superiors, egotistical NPs. I had to get on an antidepressant because I was having panic attacks at work, induced by the micromanaging incompetent clinic coordinator. So I went back to work in the hospital in my old department. They even matched my pay. Yes, the things that frustrated me in the hospital still frustrate me, but I'm no longer threatened with getting written up for using the hospital's internet to show someone a Disney meme. Story 8. I didn't exactly quit it for happiness. I quit it to take care of my mom. I left a job as an SRE at Google, which paid well, and took an academic staff software engineering job, which paid crap. My mom made it 4 more years, and I got to spend them all with her, and it was the best decision I could have made. I'm back to what I was making in 2012 and plan to retire in a year or 2. She was a good person, and I miss her, but I'm glad I got that time with her. She was my career counselor and she willed me a good bit of money, so there is honestly no level I regret that decision. If anything, I wish I'd done it sooner. Story 9. Left the oil gas industry as it was soul-sucking and was spending like 300 days a year on a drill rig, making like half what I used to, but I was single and depressed, now married and have a young son. Wish I had more money, but am much happier than I used to be with my life. Lots of money is nice. Good memories are nicer. Answer: what career did you find yourself in after? I've worked a service rig, think they're called workover rigs in the US, for like a month when I was 18 and said fudge that and quit. Completely soul-sucking work. Just curious because I live in an oil and gas town and majority people working them have criminal records, no education, or no ambition for something better. After I left, I landed myself a job doing NDT, X-raying fab and pipelines. Similar hours to rigs, but workload is way more manageable. Story 10. Took a pay cut from a well-paying job that I was bored out of my mind at. Some days I regret the decision and think I could have coasted for 20 more years, but overall happy I left because that would have been a long 20 years. Story 11. I traded burnout and breakdowns for peace and purpose. I don't make six figures anymore, but I sleep, I smile, and I no longer cry in work bathrooms. So yeah, I'd say I'm rich in all the right ways. Story 12. My husband quit his high-paying job. I say it that way because money is all relative. In December because we bought a house in a completely different area. We knew he would be quitting and had a little money saved up. We did all the math and cut our bills as much as possible. He started job searching at the beginning of the year, just as the economy went into WTF tariff mode, which made finding a job nearly impossible for him. He went from having a career, massive amounts of stress, and making almost $100K a year to working in a slightly shoot job, making $13 with pretty much no stress. If he shows up and does his job, he gets Employee of the Month, and we don't fight about tiny things anymore. Sure, I can't just drop 60 on the little handheld gaming console I want from Amazon, and we're first-time homeowners, which has its own stress, but I got my darn husband back. As long as the mortgage is paid and we have food in the fridge, we'll be okay. Story 13. I quiet quit. I wouldn't say I have a high-paying job, but I'm comfortable. I busted my jerk to be a top performer and got a 2 raise as a reward. So I no longer go out of my way to do extra work. I don't keep every minute of my day busy. I listen to audiobooks, do my homework, going for my master's, take some time to go outside in my garden, and I spend time growing plant substance as well. Legal in MN, I don't recommend breaking the law, lol. I'm much happier now. Eventually, I may look for a higher paying job, but right now I'm coasting. Story 14, I'm broke and wish I had never quit. It was fun for the first 6 months though, and I no longer wake up at 3 a.m. in a panic about some work email I forgot to send. Guess I'd rather be miserable and getting a paycheck rather than slightly less miserable but poor. And yes, I saved a ton before I quit, but it's been over 2 years and I haven't been getting the consulting work new job I had anticipated with all of my years of experience. Story 15. Like everything else, it's an imperfect decision. I was a rising star at an elite under-the-radar private tutoring college admissions fixing firm. Had clients I only saw on Zoom who lived places like Panama and the Arab Gulf. Had clients with truly opulent homes in South Florida. I made lawyer money flipping Tulane into Duke and Michigan into Harvard. After a few years of doing that, I came to loathe my bosses who not only took a huge portion of my gross hourly fees, but who spoke with a real social Darwinism about the working class and the salaried upper middle class. People who did not have inherited wealth or who made only about $250K a year. Many of the kids and their families were genuinely appreciative even. But the bad families and the rude students weren't simply frustrating. They made me want to start the communist revolution right there on the edge of Biscayne Bay. I quit the job when my family moved to a new part of the country. My bosses screamed at me for damaging the brand, and my once close coworkers promptly forgot my name and phone number, stayed at home for 2 years to be the primary parent with our children, then became a regular school teacher at a very gentle, very laid-back private school in our area. Yes, I make 13 of what I used to, and without my wife's salary, we would have had a major downgrade in lifestyle. But going from essentially being Michael Clayton, but for getting Addison into Yale to an adult who can help teenagers engage with the ancient Greek tragedies and the contemporary poetry of Rita Dove and Jory Graham feels fudge incredible. Story 16. I was a mortgage loan officer back in 2022 when I quit. 100 commission. Made the most money I've ever made, but worked every minute of the day, 7 days a week. Mindless work. My job used to preach work-life integration, which I now see was manipulation. I quit and took a job with my state government making a lower salary, but I have my life back now, am much happier, and am actually using my college degree rather than kissing real estate agents jerk all day every day. Story 17. Halved my salary but doubled my work and life satisfaction. Went from 5 days a week working at a desk, not wanting to get out of bed, and getting closer and closer to a mental breakdown, to cycling around the city I love 5 days a week delivering coffee, pastries, and other things between businesses as a cargo bike rider. Would love a little more money, but I can't really complain when I think about where my mental health was before. Story 18. I quit a poor-paying job for an even worse-paying job. My mental health is tons better. All my sleep problems have gone. I fall asleep quickly and wake feeling well-rested. I'm calmer, less irritable. My IBS symptoms have significantly improved for the first time in 10 years. But on the flip side, I am now poor as shoot. Holidays are no longer a reality. A takeout is maybe once every 6 months. My days off have to be spent doing something very cheap-free, either at home or somewhere I can walk. When my 17-year-old car inevitably breaks, I won't be replacing it and will have to walk or cycle everywhere. Also, with how bad the pension payments are on a low wage, I'm pretty concerned about what quality of life my future self is going to have. Overall, life feels a fair bit less enjoyable now, but a whole lot more calm. Story 19. I quit being a Delta flight attendant. After a decade of alcoholism and 0 relationships, am 3 years sober, in a loving relationship and have a dog. Couldn't be happier. Story 20. I quit my job, or rather, was asked to leave. I had some financial security, but truth is, I dislike every single working hour, and most of my colleagues too. For about 5 years, I was high on plant substance 247. Before that, adult beverage was my main thing. Now I'm on pause. I'll be on unemployment for a while, trying to figure out my life. To be honest, I don't feel much happier yet, but I guess 9 months sober from plant substance, 2 months off nicotine, and doing a lot of heavy shadow work has to count for something. What I do know is, if I'd kept going the way I was, I probably would have eliminated myself slowly with anger and substances. Answer, congratulations. As someone who has been sober of adult beverage substances for a year and a half, it gets easier and it's great for you. I also just got let go a week ago from a job I absolutely dislike everything about it and made me miserable for the past 6 months. Was working over 10 harder shifts with the worst lazy coworkers. Funny enough, I feel relieved even though I still need to figure it out money now. I have been to 2 concerts this week so far and slowly regaining my life back. Might be a little thing, but I feel happier already. You will too, dear stranger. Story 21. I was fired for refusing RTO order, but that's just semantics. I left my field to work in an adjacent one. I took a $40K pay cut, but instead of working in defense, I'm at a nonprofit I personally admire. If I didn't have VA disability, financially it would have been rough. I'm still paying my bills and saving, so the change of scenery remains great. Answer, good on you for refusing to return to the office. When I moved, the company I work for approved it, but said, if we think there are problems at any point in the future, we'll give you plenty of notice to return to the office. I said, if that happens, you don't need to do anything but send a shipping label so I can return my laptop. I'm never coming back in. Everything is going well, thankfully. Requiring high-performing remote workers to return to the office is insanity. And some companies are doing that because they know it will result in attrition, so they don't have to lay anyone off. Story 22. Worked in investment banking. Fell in love, left so I could build a relationship and do something different. She bailed on me the precise moment I ran out of money. Story 23. Quit as a construction engineer to work in a warehouse. Couldn't stand the office life, meetings, clients, emails, writing reports, etc. Much happier working manual labor. I've always been very frugal, so despite the considerable pay cut, it hasn't affected my day-to-day life much. Except I don't spend all my free time dreading going to work anymore. Story 24. I have worked in sales for 20 years now. Made a lot of money doing it over the years and had built up a skill set where I was selling 100K projects. Most sales teams are inherently toxic. Whether it comes from a shoot sales guy on the team who makes enough management won't touch them, management itself and their sell it even if it's not right for the customer mindset, or the sales manager who thinks he is God's gift to sales and understands it better than anyone else in the world. His style will always be used car salesman. I quit everything and moved to Ecuador. I host karaoke twice a week, which covers my rent. Then I do odd jobs, help a buddy out at his store, and tutor a little online. I I work about 15 hours a week, 4 of which would be a karaoke place I would be at, with or without pay. The other one, I'm only there because they pay me. I've never been happier. I'm well on my way to learning Spanish. While I still don't work out, my physical health probably hasn't been better in years. I'm more confident, more creative, more active, more social, and I just can't stop myself from being the weird little ADHD goblin I actually am. I didn't just quit. I planned my exit strategically and did exactly that. If anyone disliked their life, I recommend dramatically change it if you can. Story 25. Less quit, more was let go, living my best life ever. Started my fitness journey, finally having the body of my 25-year-old. Self I've never had, got into freelancing, designing pod merch, sure, there less money available, living off my savings, but having lived frugally for most of my life, it might just work out until fire kicks in. Story 26. Walked away from $100K higher base pay in the private sector for an academic job that not only had lower base pay, but no true opportunity for bonuses, and life has been awesome. I moved past that private sector pay in 5 years, and because I was overqualified for the job I took, I moved up quickly and control my schedule. I thus have ultimate freedom. I make the schedule for the entire department. And now the only difference between what I am making in academics versus what I could be making in the private sector is $50K. We even have a bonus structure now, less than it would in the private sector, but still something. But my day is only 4 to 5 hours in the hospital while just communicating with residents and fellows over the phone because I live so close. I have to go back only if there are meeting or issues with patients. Story 27. 2 stories. My high school English teacher used to be a family lawyer. He went into the profession thinking he could help families. Coming from a broken family himself, ended up doing divorces after divorces. Straw on camel's back was a drawing from a client's daughter. She still had hope that the family can have dinner together while they were finalizing the paperwork. My teacher is now vice principal of that school. He's still very happy that he's helping empower families, not breaking them. Life as a lawyer got rid of his mortgage, which helped a lot. I had a long work-related Uber ride. My driver used to be a publicly traded company's senior leadership. He quit before he became a chief executive. Even though he makes less than what he paid in taxes before, he enjoys talking to people and not have to worry about agenda. He loves not being in meetings. He's happy. Story 28. Great, but I was financially secure, so I didn't put my family at risk. I just retired. About 9 months later, I went back to work part-time at near minimum wage just to feel engaged. I love my life. Story 29. I was a pharmacist, quit and went to a call center, dislike it, but moved to another department for service implementation, and I love it. Recently, I started working a few shifts a week as a floater pharmacist to help pay for home renovation projects, but it's still much better than full-time. Being a pharmacist in a retail environment was absolute hell, and this was pre-COVID. I damaged my mental health to the point of multiple breakdowns a week. Pay went from around $90K a year to $32K, then when I went up to $45K when I moved positions. Long story short, I'm the happiest I've ever been. Story 30. I just work till I have enough to live. Depending on your lifestyle, it can be expensive or cheap. For me, it's fairly cheap. I'm 43 and could make $500K last the rest of my life and live fairly comfortable. Will never understand those who have millions and constantly crave more and more. Story 31. Going well. Get to do whatever I want and nothing at all if I feel like it. Been able to do the things I enjoy, like travel and spending more time with friends and family, getting a better hold of my health, get to make home-cooked meals and explore new recipes, get to sit down and listen to music, go on walks in the middle of the day, get back into old hobbies and find new ones. No regrets, but I know I have to get back on the grind again. Story 32. My mom did it. She now is more stressed about finding an actual good paying. It was a high-stress job. Now she went to a lower paying job, which is better hours, but I'm sure she is still stressed from it. Lots of drama there. Story 33. I went from stressing out about work to stressing out about money. But I'd rather be broke, stressed on my time than constantly working for someone else with minimal time off. Story 34. 20 years later, I still feel I won the lottery by leaving a high-stress, high-paying job to a low-stress, low-paying job. It added to my quality of life, added 4 hours of non-work time a day, and probably added years to my life. Story 35. I always feel like these threads are filled with responses from people who don't have kids. It makes a world of difference. Story 36. Wouldn't say it was a high-paying job, but we gave up our security to pursue the dream of living in Scotland. We were in England, so not a major jump. And it worked out much better for us than we could have dreamed. I'd say pursuit of happiness is more important than pursuing the means that you think might bring you happiness. Story 37. Good, found a part-time doing the same thing with substantially more pay. Now, instead of working Monday, Friday, I work only 2 to 3 days a week. Couldn't be happier about it after working so much in life. Story 38. I didn't quit, but cut my hours and pay by 23, and I have picked up a landscaping job that covers about 13 the original pay for twice the work. But the work satisfaction from working with my hands and being outside again every day is so rewarding, and I feel like I am actually proud of myself and my accomplishments every day. I can no longer afford week international vacations multiple times a year anymore, but still have enough to do weekend trips and do fun, cheap activities. Overall, I still consider going back to the higher paying job full-time eventually when my body's more tired and I need to start saving more money again. But for now, I'm happier than I ever was before. Story 39. I mean, this was definitely high paying for me. I am 12 of a dink relationship and I made over $86K a year. That was a lot to us. All our bills were paid and we could eat any meal we wanted and travel, although this job never gave me free time to travel. I never had time for myself or anything else. I worked constantly. I couldn't take it anymore. I quit one day and now I work where I'm happy. I make shoot money, but I call this my passion job now, LOL. Luckily, my husband makes enough so our bills can be paid and we can eat meals at home. We don't eat out much and we don't travel, but it's not like we were before. I'm very content with our life now. We struggle to make ends meet sometimes, but we have quality time with one another, and I'm not constantly waking up in a bitter, meanie mood. Story 40. Quit law, much happier in tech, and got to have a life and be around for my kids as they grew up. Camping holidays rather than trips abroad, but happier and healthier mentally and physically. Wouldn't change it for the world. Story 41. Much more free, but not without a cost. I suspected there would be days when I regretted it. So far, that count is up to 0 days. Story 42. The job was toxic and am much happier now. I quit in May of last year and decided I'd focus more on my artwork while taking on part-time work. In November, I applied for a call with my new paintings and got into a museum show. I had 7 of my paintings on display for 3 months. Story 43. Getting close. I'm 28. I make around 180K base before taxes. I have 0 life, and I mean 0. I work 13 to 14 hours a day, sleep right when I get home, and for my 2 days off, if I get to take them, I just sleep. I was happier when I made 60, but I feel like I'll never find anything like this again, and I need to just gut it out to put myself in a good position for the rest of my life. Story 44. I went from a structural engineer to a SASH-W. We're empty nesters, so our expenses are relatively low. It's been great. Story 45. Quite chill. I prefer to work quietly, living the soft life. In the end, that is happiness for me. Waking up without an alarm, cooking with time, and seeing the sun more than I saw walls and people I didn't like. Story 46. I quit my corporate role as a business unit manager for a top 3 aerospace giant where I was responsible for 101 or more in PL. The pay, they're way incredible. 250K total comp. But I was dying. I had a 1-hour commute through LA traffic each direction every day. Tons of domestic and overseas travel. I would scream at people at work several times per week, was responsible for firing numerous people, and I eventually started having a lot of problems sleeping, which led me to have several panic attacks, one of which was while driving home in heavy traffic. Finally, I had enough, and I quit suddenly after a particularly bad meeting. I took some time to figure out what to do with my life. I was living in a crazy expensive city in SoCal, with rent almost $4K a month. My expenses were sky high, and my nest egg wasn't going to last me very long at all. I wasn't sure what to do with my life and immediately started regretting my decision to resign. After a few weeks, I decided to start my own business. I put all my stuff in a storage unit and became a so-called digital nomad. I moved to a much lower cost of living country for a while and floated from Airbnb to Airbnb. My first year, I didn't make anything, just paid my first employee. Year 2, I made a small profit, which was enough to live and keep traveling. I'm in year 4 now, and things are going pretty well. I split my time between South America and the West Coast. I bought an RV for my time in the States. I'm living pretty comfortably. My mental health is now at 100. I love my new life. I don't make as much as I used to, but I only spend a fraction of what I used to. No commute, no daily lunch at restaurant, no dry cleaning, etc. I'm also working for myself, which makes a big difference. Having no boss is amazing. I'm hopeful that after another year or 2, I might start making as much or more as I made previously, but time will tell. Even if this experiment fails, I am so glad I tried. These have been some of the best years of my life. I feel free for the first time since I was young. Story 47. I'm broke AF, as freaking obvious as it sounds. For anyone considering doing this, lower your expenses before dropping your income. Mistakes were made. Story 48. When my wife's mom was dying, I spent a lot of time at her bedside. I got an idea to write a memoir containing memories she had of her family and recorded them in those last weeks. She was an incredible woman and had 9 kids, so stories were plentiful. The contents of the stories are less important here, but the fact that at the end, this is what kept her going and optimistic moved me. I learned that we will regret the time we don't spend with those we love. After that, I quit a $130K IT management job and spent the last 5 years making less than $30K. With COVID house inflation, I sold my 3,000 FT home, Milwaukee. I was paying a 2K per month mortgage on and bought a 1,200 FT house and a 39FT travel trailer with cash. During the summer, we traveled to different parts of North America. We prefer government-run parks, state and county, because they are cheaper and provide more of the atmosphere we want. During the school year, I volunteer for all the field trips and spend the rest of my time on personal hobbies and maintaining my home. I will die happy. Story 49. Said it on here before, but quick recap. 2018-2019, finished college and became a licensed financial advisor. Job gave me depression and I truly sucked at it. Realized I chose the wrong major and now I'm stuck in it. Failed a tragic end attempt. 2 in 1 year actually, because a lot of reasons that are too long to list TBH. Opioid addiction was strong during this time. 2019-2020, became a beekeeper for a research company. Realized I enjoyed doing that more than anything. Pay was crap, but I was happy. Then COVID hit, and thus depression spiraled once again because I got let go due to lack of professional experience. Unemployment for 34 of 2020 was brutal. Opioid addiction increased tenfold by this point. 2021, 2022, worked as a caddy valet at a golf course, feeling like a failure in life. Truly became an alcoholic during this time. 2023 to present, swallowed my pride and went back to corporate finance and am now a financial analyst. Pay is at least salaried and benefits are good. Work is meh, but all is stable. Hybrid work schedule is wonderful, MHO. However, the feeling of being forever stuck in a cubicle at a soul-sucking, boring AF job remains strong. 2 years fully sober from all substances and adult beverage, though. Finally can afford professional help when I can and get meds for tragic end thoughts. Still live in a rough area of my city because of my poor life choices during and immediately after college and because affordable housing in this shoot economy. Story 50. I still shoot. It's a give and take. Ultimately, my biggest stressor was the pace of work. Everything was urgent, but nothing really was. Like they wanted AI speed and it isn't possible for a human, but the money and security was good. Story 51. Currently coming to this crossroads. I'm an EHS manager making $140K a year. It's draining, but provides a lot for me and the missus. And on top of that, my company is closing our site and shipping the work to India in October of next year. So I'll get a severance, but it might be time to reevaluate spending the second half of my working life behind a desk. Story 52. Cut my pay in half at 55 so I could do my own thing. Free, bills are paid plus a bit and still creating. Story 53. Went from running a successful agency to government work. Took over a 75K pay cut to do so. My job now is to truly help people, not screw them over for shareholder profit. So much happier now, even if the money's missed. What it took to make that level of money was toxic and caused massive moral injury, at least in the industry I was in. Life is significantly better now, but I'll also admit that without the money and sacrifice prior to the switch, everything would be worse. So I'm grateful I had the opportunity to make money, but also grateful I don't need to make as much anymore. Helping people is where it's at. Just won't get financially rich doing do. Rich experience and connections? You bet. Story 54. I quit a $450K a year job to take a job making $120K. I'm happier and less stressed, more time off, but now I'm losing my house to the bank. At least my hair stopped falling out though. Story 55. I was a scientist working cancer research for more than half my life before the biotech industry collapsed due to the new administration. I figured this was my cue to dip out of the biotech field entirely. I made 6 figures, but I worked late, worked weekends, and stressed about work all the time. I was anxious about experiments because a lot of the time, the results of the experiments were not under my control. Science is science, and things fail because we don't know everything about science, which is the whole point of experimenting. But the fact that I couldn't control that messed with my psyche. And don't even mention the stress about wondering if my work would be funded for the next year or so. So I decided to half my pay cut and am now working on finance as a very basic glorified Excel user. Copy-pasting numbers, double-checking numbers, extremely boring and repetitive. But I love it. The mind-numbing boringness allowed me to use my brain and extra energy to pursue things I always wanted to do, like hobbies, cooking, art, etc. Due to the remote nature of my new job, I could have my laptop with me as I putter around the house doing what I want to do. However, to make this work as comfortably as possible, I moved from a place with a very high cost of living to one with a low cost of living. Sold my old house and used the profits to very nearly purchase the new house outright. So now I have a very small negligible mortgage. And the cost of living is cheap, so I don't have to worry much about money. I was never materialistic and didn't spend much anyway. Now I am free to do what I want without ever worrying about how to get the next promotion, forever chasing the salary figures even higher and higher. My job is mundane and boring, and as of now, this is exactly what I want. Not sure what I'll feel like in the future, but this hiatus is what I needed. Story 56. Much better. It was hard to adjust at first because we had given in to lifestyle creep, but I went from barely seeing my babies to doing bedtime almost every night. I went down about $180K in salary and go on fewer and shittier vacations. I don't really care. Story 57. Went from a stressful $150K a year position to a $50K position. Now I am not stressed at work, but I'm stressed outside of work and have no options to go back. Don't do it. Just deal with it now and enjoy retirement. Story 58. Literally everyone I know who's done this has regretted it. There's an initial euphoria and peace for a few years, but then the reality of not having money sets in. Especially during uncertain times like now, having money for a secure future is the most important thing. Story 59. Left high-tech marketing. Got my CDL and drive big rigs now. Making very good money. About to finish paying for my first truck. It's a hassle and definitely a life of deprivation, but the adventure and camaraderie is so satisfying. Story 60. I started a job in August 2024, making $150K salary, working a WFH desk job at a leading tech cybersecurity company. But I was losing my mind and starting to have mental breakdowns multiple times a week. No social life, and hardly even felt present with my girlfriend, even though I live with her. Stress dreams started to take over my nights to the point where I had no hours in my day where I wasn't doing work or stressing about it. December 2024 came around and I quit with no plans. Just about $10K in savings. I wouldn't change it for the world. Now I work a job building LED video walls in cool places all over the country and sometimes in other countries depending on the customer. I choose what weeks I want to work. I get points for traveling, and my girlfriend and I are about to go on a 2-week road trip just because we can. I feel free just making ends meet. I would do this 1000x over stressing on other people's tech problems and sitting at a desk all day. Story 61. Worked in upper management, 6 to 7 days a week, long hours, lots of travel. My kids were young, and I remember going to work early Monday morning before they woke up and not getting home until after they were asleep. Didn't see them until Friday. That was the breaking point. Yeah, we didn't have as much money, but wouldn't have traded that time for anything. Story 62. After the honeymoon stage when I retired early, I found that the stress returned a decent amount. It's relative to what you are used to. Now, instead of stressing about some corporate BS, I stress about other things like family, health, housework, money, etc. Also, I still dream about issues at work sometimes. Less now, but it still takes time to get uninstitutionalized. Answer. I left my job quite recently, and I can believe the mental momentum I still carry from it. I think about my boss all the time. I hear his voice in my head, and above all, I am only now starting to regain my confidence. My boss was a true bully. I can't believe how much his stress I was carrying, and for what. I am now forcing myself to take some time to regain my sense of self and to try to let the constant feeling of urgency die down. I even have to take time to deal with some minor health issues that the stress brought about. I'll probably stick to my career, product manager, but good God, will I look for a different culture. I wouldn't hesitate to trade that for less money any day of the week. Any tips on how to speed up the process of UN institutionalization, as you call it? Story 63. I went from a corporate gig where I was making about $15 a year more than I do now, but since that job was hourly, it meant that I was in the office a shoot ton to earn that money. It sucked too. We're talking 10-hour days being the usual schedule and 12-hour days being normal. And the occasional 14-hour shift wasn't unheard of, and I worked more than a few 16-hour days. Where I work now, I'm salaried, and I work exactly 8 hours a day. No 8.5 to cover lunch bullshit. Go home and relax. I work for a nonprofit art museum, and pretty much everyone who works here loves it, so the vibe tends to be positive, and the nature of the organization is such that I feel like I'm serving my community working here. Money is getting tight with the current economy, and I've been considering going back to a corporate gig since there's much more money there and a better opportunity for advancement. Where I'm at now, I'm the only person who does what I do, so there's no chance I'll ever be promoted. But my wife keeps talking me out of it. She likes living with someone who isn't always tired, never home, and always stressing out about work and deadlines. Story 64. I took a $20K pay cut in 2021 to revisit my passion for performing arts. I did not have a financial cushion. I'm now an admin at a university. I left corporate retail where I was poised to rise in the company. Since then, universities are struggling financially. Universities are struggling culturally. People aren't going to events. However, my retail experience allowed me to really market this venue. My first year was scary. Venue had been closed and our audience seemingly moved. Second year, 20 comp to first year. Third year, 30 comp to second year and 10 comp to pre-COVID. Just completed the fourth year at 35 comp to prior year. 7 weeks into the new fiscal year, we are tracking 40 comp. When I started, the venue was $500K in debt to the university. Now we're $75K in the positive and tracking to generate $200K in revenue yearly, all with a yearly budget of zero because we were in deficit. One of our next conversations is my pay because I am currently undervalued and I have the data to prove it. I'm doing fantastic, but the world appears to be burning around me. I expect admin to shut us down within the coming years because they can see the big picture. It's also possible the economy and politics will just shut the university down someday. If I can make it through the next 3 years or so, I could have some peace. I could have confidence and stability and be able to personally invest in my community as well as myself. Until then, everything is fine while it all burns around me, okay? Story 65. I was laid off from a very high-paying job. Tariffs. Being poor is probably the worst thing ever. I should know. Been poor my whole life until this last I had. Story 66. It's crazy how one bad decision can ruin your whole life, and even the reason you left it for won't even matter. Story 67. I finally got a promotion to what I thought was my dream job. Worked over a decade to attain it. I made more money than I ever did before. We lived in nice houses, my kids went to private school, and we bought anything and everything we wanted. But I saw very little of my family. I was always traveling and working late. The stress was astronomically high and always the pressure to perform. I ended up drinking too much to deal with the stress, and slowly it turned me into a different person. So I quit that job after 5 years, left the big city and bought a much smaller house in a small town. I'm making about half what I did before, but you know what? I have dinner with my wife and kids every night. I help with homework and picking them up from school. I have time to play with my kids and to spend time with my wife, which has strengthened our relationship. As long as you can readjust your expectations and expenditures and keep your focus on why you made the changes, it's very doable. I wish I would have done this sooner. Screw that extra money. Story 68. I am much happier. However, I had a very substantial cushion to fall back on while I got healthy and decided what I wanted to do. I think leaving a high-paying job would have been hell without my cushion. Insurance alone would have been difficult, much less trying to replace pay and other benefits. I lead a very different life than I did, and I am working to get back there, but this time as my own boss. Story 69. Was a lawyer, quit after 7 years, moved continents and took some time off, then worked my way up to be CEO of a private health service. After 14 years, quit, that took some time off, moved continents again, and worked my way up again to be CEO of another health service after 14 years, quit again, moved continents, back to the second one. Now I'm trying desperately not to be a CEO, trying to be part-time. I don't want all the hours and stress, but I dislike even more watching other people screw up management when I'm in any way affected. Story 70. Left my job in January after having my first child. I was making just over $107K, excellent money for my area. The future scares me, having been unemployed for almost a year in this economy, but I wouldn't trade the time with my child for anything. Story 71. Quit a construction management job to work for a municipality. After 6 months, I wanted to blow my brains out. Back to construction with the boys. Story 72. Left a high-paying radiologist gig for academics. Turned out to be same work, half pay, and went back. Story 73. Worked in the motion picture industry, which means since 1977, I've been a participant in the gig economy. Long before it was ever called that. It can be pretty lucrative once you're a head of department and provided you network sufficiently well to work steadily. But I realized in 2021 that I'd only taken 1 2-week offshore vacation in the last 6 years because between jobs I was hanging by the phone waiting for it to ring. I was working in such a competitive industry that I had become obsessed with chasing that next big project, and as a result, I was getting virtually no enjoyment out of life, even during my downtime. So I looked at my RRSP, Canadian 401k, and realized, yes, I did have enough to retire if I was careful. I was also lucky in that, shortly after I retired, some investments I'd made long ago finally paid off, so I didn't have to watch my pennies too closely in retirement. Now, once the winter rains start to fall in Vancouver, I head for a beach in Mexico, and I don't bloody come back until my neighbor texts me that my daffodils are coming up. I'm enjoying every day and definitely making up for all the time I lost working in dark, filthy sound stages. Story 74. Not me, but my wife just quit her well-paying job for mental health reason. We can't afford rent on my income alone. She doesn't have another job lined up, and I just found out she's pregnant. So yeah, I'm freaking out a little. Story 75. Fudge great. We both had downtown corporate high-paying jobs, a new baby, the stress in traffic and forced corporate bullshit. I quit first, had clients by Monday, haven't looked back. My wife quit about a year later, had clients by Monday. We're doing well enough, are pretty much stress-free, and are entirely debt-free and live in the countryside near a small town in BC. Story 76. Went from a really well-paid industrial electrician, working in major factories and tech centers, to farming. Am happy as a pig, in slop but fudge. Am broke compared to my old career, but I'm also working for myself, family, than a bunch of greedy people pushing insane deadlines with a fairly high exposure to hazardous conditions. All I gotta worry about now is getting ran over by pissed-off livestock, or the sun this Florida heat will eliminate a man quickly. My social life died, but I was tired of keeping up with everyone else, and I didn't know how to be alone. Life is very slow-paced now. I'm more connected to my environment, and they've learned a shoot-ton of skills to just survive off the land. Grocery store trips are once a month now compared to once a day. Bunch of trade-offs, but overall, I'm happier now. Story 77. Fudge great, I'm happy. Mission accomplished. Was partner track at a major law firm, had the credentials and track record to be extremely well compensated. Quit because the hours were horrendous. Now I work a lot less for quite a bit less money and live in a lower COL area. Loving life. Story 78. Used to work in banking and the culture was brutal. Made good money, but the evil empire demanded its pound of flesh in return. Went and became a traveling salesman. Lost about 60K, but gained a life. Story 79. I really want to hear from those who have actually done it. Is pursuing happiness really more worthwhile than a high salary? Story 80. It's good, thanks. I did my time in IT security, about 13 years, and focused on saving and investing largely as much as I could at the time, in tandem with my better half who also had a decent career. I retired early to the public sector and served my community as a police officer for a number of years before eventually stopping all paid work to focus more on the things we enjoy in life. The money we tucked away when younger together with some careful, if adventurous investing has made for a good life despite challenges along the way. I now spend my time volunteering, helping others, monkeying about on some Scottish islands, and land we have bought, as well as charting my investment adventures on my sub, our double bubbler, and blog. Story 81. I work in nonprofit research and technology. I'm 23 years into my career, high productivity leader with a strong work ethic and desire for growth. Most of my career, I've made 30, 50 less, working for passion, than my counterparts in industry, and seriously thinking about taking that high-paying job. Anyone hiring? Story 82. I kinda did. I was an exec at a growing startup I co-founded, hadn't been having fun, and had some differences of opinion with the CEO, and decided to leave and do consulting almost a year ago. I wasn't happy and wanted more control over what I did, and was thinking of maybe starting another startup. I lost the salary and also lost a lot of equity in the company by leaving. I'm semi-regretting the decision. Luckily, the consulting has been going well, but it's tiring having to deal with all this self-employment crap, logging hours, revenue, expenses, finding customers, etc., and knowing that if I lose a contract, making mortgage payments could be a serious challenge. I could try and find a new job instead, but the market isn't great either, and I don't know if I'd make as much as I did It's something I'm considering, though. I thought I'd enjoy having control of my time and being able to do what I want to do, but I'm having a hard time motivating myself to do much, and seems like I don't have the energy I did when I first built our startup. I'm very much a the grass is always greener type of guy, though. There's a good chance I would regret it if I went back. Story 83. Had a cushy medical sales job, but required to leave super early home late and constantly in the computer. Had a baby and decided to give up the concrete jungle and move to the family farm and ranch in Montana. Not as much money, but I can spend precious time with my wife and kid. And country life is just not as stressful as it would be in competitive sales and city life. Story 84. Not great. Left a cupcake of a job due to awful management. Was making $90K a year. Knew I was taking a pay cut to get into Eldo 1 IT. It never happened. I abandoned it, and now I make $42 a year doing super rough work. Currently banking on maybe moving into a sales position with this company and going back to what I was making. Likely in a year or two, surviving. But I definitely should have just stuck it out. Didn't realize what I had till it was gone. Burned the bridge on my way out out of spite and anger, so there's no going back. Yippee. Story 85. Love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life is some of the worst advice in history, probably said by a rich person who doesn't work. You can make money or be happy, but you cannot do both. Story 86. I was in the Army making better money than I am now as a paramedic, but being a paramedic is far, far less stressful than dealing with my last unit. I feel like I got out of jail, like I was reborn. I dislike my supervisor so much that I'd have dreams of violence, and those were the happy dreams. A bad day as a paramedic, I've needed to strip off my clothes outside my house and shower off the literal human soup of a rotted and disintegrating man. I'd deal with that any day rather than working for my last unit again. Leaving the Canadian Armed Forces was the best decision I've ever made. My wife even says I look younger, happier, and healthier. I feel it. Story 87. I was an art gallery manager for 2 years. Turns out I disliked desk jobs and went back to serving bartending. I make the same amount but work less days and get off whenever I want. Get to see me other industry friends. My quality of life is much better. However, I've been doing it 16 years and have established my pay and quality employment. The EBS and flows of paychecks are not for the faint of heart if you don't have good money management or self-control on spending. Story 88. I did this and my mental health improved so much that I ended up being really good at the new job compared to my old one. Fast forward 5 years and I now make more money than I did previously, but maintain the healthy work-life balance of the new job. Life is good and I am grateful. Story 89. I quit in May. I'm in the best shape of my life, burning 700,000 calories a day and lifting 3 times a week. I'm not reliving anything from the past or worrying about the future. I go to bed and wake up in complete peace. Story 90. Incidentally, I just quit. My last day was Friday. I was a decently paid software engineer. In the near term, feels awesome to have a time in my life where I can do anything I want. It feels like jumping off a cliff and being in free fall, but also feels like starting over with a clear head. Let's see how I feel about it in a month. Story 91. It happened a few years ago. I quit a well-paying job as it was making me miserable, stressed, unable to think about anything other than another upcoming awful day at that job. I quit it without having another job lined up. So on one hand, I was happier, but I was also quite stressed about being jobless. It took me 4 or 5 months to find a new job with worse pay, though I didn't start looking immediately. It was an okay job, but I moved on from it after less than a year. In the long run, I don't regret that decision, and life is good, other than some not work-related things. Story 92. It's been a roller coaster, but I never look back. I used to work remotely in a fast-paced IAT consulting. Lots of managers and bad vibes. I visualized the future 2 to 3 years and took the risk. Traveled a lot. Many things happened. Now I landed a completely different job, FIFO type. Many hours but no stress, no schedule, better paying, far from human contact, different planning, low responsibilities. Never touched a computer again, and that feels wonderful. I honestly feel happier and definitely optimistic. I totally don't regret my decision, but the transition was not easy. Story 93. When I left my job 2 years ago, I was earning over $250K in salary and bonuses per year. I now earn about $60K per year. I want to be very clear that earning at that high level is what made it possible for me to earn less now. I asked to go during a round of staff reductions, and it was accepted, and they gave me a very nice going-away package. Acknowledging privilege here. The question asks about happiness, though, so I'll focus on that. I am so much happier. Period. Full stop. I freelance in my prior field and recently picked up a part-time job at a retail shop that is totally unrelated to anything I've ever done, and I love it. I do worry about money. We likely will need to replace a car soon, and before that wasn't even something that would give me any concern. We just buy one with cash. Now we need to think about it and be more conscious of the impact of monthly car payments on our budget. We plan our vacations more carefully. No more renting a place on a whim. I also worry about health insurance because we're doing ACA, and who knows what will happen with that in the future. If I had to go back to what I was doing before, though, I just don't think I could do it. It was changing me in a bad way. I disliked my job so much. I really didn't care, and I think that other people could tell. It was time to go and create a different life. For that, I'm happy every single day. Story 94. I'm mid to late 30s, moved out of the US for political reasons and took a roughly $100K cut. I then decided to permanently stay out of the US, but at a cost of a further $10K reduction, switching from short-term to permanent contract, meaning I'm now making $110K less than I used to, and that's gross. The country I'm in has higher taxes than US, so I'm netting even less. Back in the US, and with that high-paying job and the associated long hours, I was single the entire time. Didn't have the time nor the willpower for any long-term relationship. My plan was to remain single and go fire in my late 40s, then start to enjoy life. If I had met anyone, I would have made sure they were down to dink and shift my retirement plan up to early 40s. At no point in time did I ever consider I would be able to fit in having a child. The lifestyle doesn't support it, and by the time I did plan to retire, I figured I would be too old. In exchange for all that money, I now work anywhere between 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, with 2 of those days being remote. I have never once been contacted about work after 5:30 p.m. or on weekends, and I leave my work phone and computer when I go on holiday. Nobody at work knows my personal phone number or email. With my free time, I explored most of Western Europe, met someone, got married, had a child. I now spend my after work with my kid and zonk out on Reddit after bedtime. I don't plan on retiring in my 40s anymore, but I do not regret my decision one single bit. Story 95. Amazing. Spectacular. No more migraines. I sleep better. I'm healthier. I eat better. I smile more. I'm more energetic. I have an extra pep in my step. I'm much happier. And the list goes on. Story 96. My sleep went from being total garbage. Fitbit sleep health is actually not terrible. FUW. When I was working 5 days a week in office, RTO5, since January of this year, to being actually restorative. I'm working a diff job now, fully remote, but for about 12 the pay. It's been transformational for my overall health, but the stress around having money is definitely higher since I just closed on a new home, with a monthly payment that's just over double what I was paying in rent before. I can afford the new place, and it's within my means, but given that I'm not grinding for another promotion, I'm basically the highest level I can be without being specific because it'll dox me, which means my upwards growth is limited. Given that I spent 10 years at big tech and am now outside of that world, everything is more interesting to me now because I'm no longer limited to one singular big tech stack, which was the cause of my self-perceived stagnation at my previous role. Story 97. I went from 60 hours on site to moving to a job that was 40-ish and includes 3 days working from home. The pay is less, but I sleep better and longer. I'm happier overall, and according to my wife, she wakes up less to hear me talking about my job in my sleep. My blood pressure is down, I have more time to take care of myself. I just feel better overall, and my wife's opinion is I'm happier overall as well. It's been a huge change, but deciding my own health was the higher priority than money was the best decision I've made. The job I moved to was far from leaving us at minimum wage, but it was a good deal less. The most important realization is that I am not my job. Work is what you do to take care of your loved ones and buy those moments where you can spend time with them and enjoy life outside of work. It's a lucky situation considering the people who want to work but can't find a job. Story 98. Life is overall much better quality because I'm enjoying what I do, even though I sometimes make very little. I cook nice meals because I have time. My meals are much better than any restaurant in the post-COVID era, and I exercise the first hour of every weekday before work instead of driving 30-50 minutes a day. If I had not stopped the high-stress job, I'm pretty sure I would be dead or want to be. I was getting close to the end of my career, so it was less risky than if I was only, say, 5 or 10 years in. However, it still took a lot of courage to leave something I spent years working to become. No regrets. Story 99. Left a 100K a year job for a 60K job in the same field. The difference is I get to do just the part of my old job that I love, and the new position is very close to home. I'm much happier now, but the money part is proving more difficult than I anticipated. Worth it? So far, so good. My worry is an unexpected bill. Other than that, I'm having a great time. Story 100. I take fewer vacations due to less time off and make around 15 less at my new job. I'm also much happier, and when I do take a vacation, it feels like a nice treat and not an utter necessity where I count down the days remaining with sheer dread. Story 101. It's been 3 days since I quit, and this weekend I rested and slept like I haven't in years. I managed to save enough to be comfortable for at least a year, so I'm not in a rush. Money is not worth it if I'm feeling empty and drained at the end of the day. Peace and having a fulfilling home life is worth so much more to me. Story 102. I'm pretty new to the change, but loving it so far. I went from 400K working very stressful, 60-80 hours per week, to 270K for 45 hours and low to no stress. Story 103. I swapped my high salary for high vibes, and honestly, I think I got the better deal. Life's too short not to enjoy the ride. Story 104. Sadly, did not work for me. Thought I was going to a better place. Turned out boss was a psychopath and a moron. Found a new job in 6 months. Story 105. I'm about 5 months in. My kids have had more playdates, and I've been able to volunteer more in their classrooms. They got to have a much more relaxed and fun summer since they didn't have to do all-day summer camps. Also, finally working on getting them formal autism ADHD diagnoses and possibly getting them on IEP so they can do better in school. I help them more with their homework, and they've been able to take up a couple more hobbies. I make a lot more dinners from scratch, and I have perfected my sourdough. I exercise more, but so far haven't lost any weight. My house is a little cleaner. All my mom guilt is gone. I do miss the satisfaction of having a career, but find being a SM much more meaningful and impactful. Story 106. I get actual sleep. The day I quit my job, I had the best night's sleep of my life. I had no idea what I was going to do for money. My rent was due, car payments, no groceries. COVID lockdowns had just ended in my country at the time, and I still had the best night's sleep. Now I live on the other side of the world. I work a few hours a week, and I married the love of my life. I did not have time for a personal life or hobbies before. Now I can do everything I want, whenever I want. Story 107. I was an engineering manager in charge of Europe, Middle East, and Asia for a tech company. Traveled a lot, lived a good life. Quit to become a grad student for grad student money in a different field at an older age. Best decision I ever made. Was second-guessing the first few months, but soon as research stated, I was happy. Haven't looked back. I do sometimes think what I would have been like if I didn't switch. Story 108. I'm still 6 figures, just lower than it could be. But I work from home and set my own schedule. Low stress and interesting work. Very happy with my choice. Story 109. This thread is interesting to read as someone who is currently in a lower paying job with no idea where to go from here. I like my job and I'm comfortable in my day-to-day, but my future is very uncertain and there's no growth here. I'm only 26. It's like, do I stay here because I enjoy it, or am I supposed to uproot myself for something more? My debt will be paid off soon, and I'll be able to start saving, and then maybe I'll feel better about staying for longer. I just don't know what I would do if I needed more money. I have a stupid degree, and my ADHD is super incompatible with going back to regular school. The thing I knew I would like if I needed to switch gears is now stupid to chase after. Coding. DK. I just see some of my friends getting promotions and making more, and I feel a little jealousy. But I'm in a weird spot where I make just enough at my job, and if I went to climb a ladder somewhere else, I would probably be starting even lower, and I can't really afford that. Unless I picked something like a trade where the starting pay is higher than I make now, but I know myself, and I know I'm too physically tired to do manual labor like that. I love long-distance driving, though. But I'm also a woman, LOL. Story 110. Much better. I make half of what I used to, but I also work a normal 40, prob more like 30-35 hour week with nights weekends truly off. This is instead 80-hour weeks where I was essentially on call every waking hour of every day, dealing with constant high-stress situations. I am still comfortable salary-wise, so it's an easy to feel like I made the right choice, and while sometimes I miss the feeling of unlimited money, I wouldn't trade the peace and happiness I have now for anything. I'm glad I did what I did for the time I did it. It definitely helped me get back on track after years of being underpaid and even get ahead. That all said, though, Workaholism is a true disease, and I'm happy to be in remission. Story 111. For me, a lot better. I was able to realize that I had an eating disorder and get treatment. I was able to find purpose. I was able to stop having panic attacks. However, I was only able to stay afloat because my husband has a well-paying job that he loves. I will be forever grateful I was able to leave that career and forever saddened by the fact that there are so many people who can't make that choice. Accountant finance to swimming instructor. Story 112. Go to Indonesia or someplace, the people who are dirt poor are happier than anyone I have ever met in a soulless corporate job. Story 113. I left 6 months ago to do independent consulting. I am enjoying my life and my work so much more. The quality of my life has quadrupled. However, I am still getting used to the financial strain of living on a budget. Story 114. I quit a job where I traveled 3-4 weeks a month for a job that pays much less, but will let me sleep in my own darn bed every night of the year. It hasn't been long, but good God, I am so happy to have been home for 3 weeks straight already. I was paying a mortgage on a house that was empty and decaying because I did not have time to maintain it. Story 115. I make good money and have minimal stress. I am at the point of the next step being a very stressful taking. My boss, for example, is in meetings 247. He probably makes 30, 40 more than I. My meetings are sporadic. I am happy where I'm at. I think ideally you find the middle ground by not making huge dough with minimal stress. Story 116. Better, but stress still creeps in. Life gets more expensive and I have to go back to a higher paying job to keep up. Story 117. Not quitting a toxic, high-paying job fast enough is one of the rare things I regret. There are always other high-paying jobs. Story 118. Quit a job as a software engineer in a very well-paying job that included on-call. Was getting sick often. My sleep was terrible while on call and overall was feeling unhealthy. Moved to a different company that has lower pay, but no on-call and more flexible hours. I earn less and have little left after. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you'd like to see more content like this, you might be interested to know that I've created another channel with a similar theme, especially for those of you who enjoy what I do. I'll leave a link in the description, and I hope to see you there. Take care.